These are outer tie rods, both of them. This right here is an inner tie rod. Our job today is replacing the outer tie rod because this one here is bad. So this is definitely, well, it's steering, but it's definitely part of the suspension. So we'll be altering, well, we'll be trying not to alter the suspension. Talk about what aspect of the suspension? Toe, the distance between the backs of the wheels or the tires, however you want to look at it. So let's think of a good reference, a good visualization. Toe, feet, shoes, boots. Okay, yeah, that's gonna have to work. Check this out. The aspect of alignment that we're concerned about today is toe, so pigeon-toed, or the inverse, where it's like a V. So assuming we have perfect alignment, and these are the tires facing straight forward, right? I'll make my change to the outer tie rod. If I screw it up, if I make it too long, then this is what happens. Because the outer tie rod is in the back, end up having a little wonky wheel on my right side. If I make it too short, this is what happens. This wheel ends up facing all the way to the right, and it's going to drive funny, and the steering wheel will be crooked when you drive. So my goal is to try to keep them as straight as possible. And I'm working off the assumption that the alignment was perfect, and then the part got worn, and so that's why I'll change it. This is my 2002 Infiniti Q45, and we've got a tie rod end that's loose. I already verified that earlier, so this is going to be the process of changing it. And that manifests in clunking sounds sometimes when you drive, you know, up, down, when you turn either left or right. Your steering wheel might shake a little bit at highway speeds. Possibly your front end is going to be clunking because your wheel's just doing its own thing. And look at that. That right there, you could already see it's loose. The wheel's jacked a little bit. You see that? That's not supposed to happen. The steering wheel is locked, right? So this is too much movement. Up, down. Well, I need to jack it up a little higher so you can see how it behaves when it's up, okay? So the bearing test usually, the up, down, 12 and 6 o'clock, pretty good. Sideways, that's the rear tire, that's the outer tie rod end is bad. And I checked my bushings already, those are pretty good. With bushings, just depends on how you set up. My up, down, not too bad either. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the wheel and let's get to replacing it, okay? Alright. So this right here is your outer tie rod. That's what controls the hub and enables your wheel to steer. You see that? Also has some up-down movement. Gotta turn the wheel all the way the other way to enable us to do this. So here it is. As you can see, when I move the hub, there's a little bit of a knock over here. It's supposed to be much tighter than that. And also it's got up-down movement. You're not supposed to see all that, that's too much. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove this cotter pin, remove this castle nut over here, then remove the tie rod end. But before that, what I do is come here, and before loosening it, I want to, it's just a personal thing, what I'm going to do is count how many threads I have, because I'm trying to save money on an alignment. So let me explain what, how, and why I'm about to do here. The goal is to remove this outer tie rod. This is the inner tie rod over here, and it goes into the steering rack. So what I'm going to do is to remove this one here, and the goal is to, at the end of the day, have this measurement from here to here, or wherever, say from here to here, to be the same as it was before the change. Again, remember we're working off the assumption that the alignment was perfect. Okay, the other side has a Moog part. This side does not have a name, so my assumption is that this is either the original factory part or something that was changed way earlier. The Moog one looks a lot newer. So that's my assumption here. So again, I'm assuming the alignment was perfect, then this got bad. Okay, so for that reason, right, I bought this, and I'm assuming that, let's just assume that these are exactly the same length. This one's about maybe 1/8 of an inch shorter, you know, looking at it there, maybe 1/4 inch. You have to do it center to center. So assuming that these are the same, what I want to do is save money on having to do an alignment. Not only that, I might end up actually having to do an alignment, but I want it to drive fairly straight between now and then, so that the ABS system and all those other systems that are dependent on the steering wheel being straight work. Okay, so what's going to happen is, first I come here and I count the threads from the back, get a reference point. If you want to measure it, that's cool. You know, you could do that, draw a line and measure it. And what I do is just count the threads, and I have 5 full threads or 5.5 valleys, right? And so working off the assumption that these are exactly the same, what I'm going to do is loosen this nut and remove all this, unthread it off. And once I put it back, it should be exactly the same distance. Push this nut back to, you know, the same distance from the back, right? 5.5 valleys from the inner tie rod. However, that premise gets thrown out of the window if I bought something. Well, not really. You just have to adjust for it. If I bought an outer tie rod that's a whole inch shorter than the existing one, what I'd have to do is come here, install it, and move this to 5.5 valleys like I intended to, plus 1 inch, right? So you'll see once I do the installation, you'll see what's going on. But this is why. This is the whole trying to keep alignment as good as possible. Alternatively, that might not work at all. And as I said, I'll have to take it to get an alignment anyway. But 2, I also have a string alignment. That's, you know, shade tree alignment. It works. It gets the wheels as straight as possible. So after tinkering with them, I got to measure them, and this one here, from the end to the center, is just shy of, here you go. Okay, I thought I had this. Yeah. So the distance is, you know, 1/8, just like I thought. I bought 1/8 difference in, well, so this one is, I should say it. So this one is 3 5/8, okay, approximately, right? It's just a hair over that, 3 5/8. This one here is almost, but not exactly, just a hair over 3 3/4. Well, 3 3/4. There you go. Just a hair over 3 3/4. So like I assumed, the distance between them, the difference in their lengths is about 1/8. So what's going to happen, like I said, is I'll come here, right, measure using, you know, my 5 from the top. Again, I need to move this way. I need to turn it back. That's something you have to fuss about, but I put a reference mark over here. I put a reference mark over here so that this will be at the top, just so that when I'm counting on the side, I'm counting from the same part of the thread, right? Sometimes the thread is not complete and you might end up getting it wrong. That's why I put that reference mark over there. So what I'm going to do, again, go for 5 threads or 5.5 valleys, and account for that an eighth. And an eighth in this case is going to be, an eighth of an inch, that is going to be 2 threads. So basically, this one was a little shorter, right? It was short, 2 threads shorter, right? So that means when I install this one, which is a little longer, it's going to have to be 3 threads instead of 5, right? Take away 2 threads because this is going to be longer. Otherwise, let's call it an inch. Say this was an inch shorter than this one, right? If this was an inch shorter, let's go back. Whoa. So the way I think about the difference in threads is, so this, if this were an inch shorter than this one, when you install it, you'd have 5 threads, right? But then when you install this other one, it will be a whole inch longer, right? So that means you have to move this back. The nut has to be back a whole inch. Again, remember the key assumption here is that the alignment was perfect before the, you know, the ball joint got all wonky, right? Can you hear that? Just hear my knuckles. So that's what we're going to do right now. So follow through as we do this part of the video. This is the reason, I'll reiterate the reason I made this reference mark over here. As I said, since this is a helically, you know, it's a spiral, the thread is not, you know, straight cut. When you look at the shaft, on one side, you could count 4 threads. On the other side, you could count 3, right? And that's why I made it like this, so that regardless of where it's facing, you're going to have the same amount. So what I did is came here and came to the top again, adjusted the nut so that I would have 5.5 valleys or 5 threads, and then reduced that by 2, and this is what I end up with, right around here, right? When I counted off this reference point at the top, right? I'm going to have 1, 2, 3.5. So at this point, what I'm going to do is get this one here, zoom out a little bit. So come here, then tighten this. So as you can see, the whole assembly is getting shorter without really messing with my nut. So the same spot I want it to be. And there you go. It is exactly where I need it to be. And then what I'm going to do is come here, lock this, hold this with my adjustable wrench, and then tighten this to lock it in place. Okay, again, remember, as I said, depending on where you're counting it from, you could have 3 threads versus a whole 4, right? That's why you need to, well, that's why I mark my inner tie rod to have a reference point on there, okay? Cool. Okay, so I've gotten it as close as possible to where I want it to be. And before tightening this castle nut, what I'm going to do is go to the bottom again, lift it up for support so that, you know, the ball joint doesn't just go spinning while I tighten the nut. There you go, you can feel the resistance. So then it's pretty good. And then I'm going to come here and again verify. And as I said, this is how you do your alignment. You loosen this nut over here. The way you do an alignment is you loosen this nut over here, and then you move the whole arm in and out. If I can find that wrench. Then you turn this in and out, and that's going to lengthen it or shorten it. That's going to lengthen the distance or shorten it. And that's how they do an alignment. So for now, I mean, it's pretty much all ready, and everything will be fast forwarded from here, okay? So like I said I would do, I'm going to tighten the outer tie rod onto the nut, onto the securing nut. There you go. I don't think that's going anywhere. At this point, there's really nothing else to do but put everything away and get ready to go for a test drive. So, I mean, at this point, installation is the reverse of removal, and everything will be sped up from here on. At this point, it's all done, and what I'm going to do is lift that end up again and test it. Shake the wheel, make sure there's no clunking, and we should be successful. So up we go again. So it's shaking just a little bit, but this is normal because I can't feel it here. It's actually inside the car because I can see the steering wheel shake while I do this. You know, that's normal wiggle, so to say. Again, up, down, everything seems fine, and I'd say we're successful.
Back from a test drive, and what I'd like to say is that one, it's driving way better. It doesn't clunk around corners. It doesn't clunk going up, the driveway or anything like that. However, I still need to do an alignment. The reason being that when I drive straight, my steering wheel is still cocked to the left a little bit, and it has a very slight pull to the right. I say slight because, well, that's my battery. I'm not quite sure if it's as a result of anything I've done, or if it's just a matter of the crown of the road leading it, into the ditch, as it so happens. So I'm still going to need an alignment because when I drive, I believe my toe is bad. They're not parallel. My front wheels are not exactly parallel to each other, because when I get to about 70 miles an hour, I start getting a shake and the steering wheel jiggles. So I know an alignment is due. So in conclusion, good job to me, but I did not manage to avoid the alignment guy. And it kind of makes sense, honestly, because they only changed one last time, and when, assuming they even did an alignment when they changed that, thing is, I got this car in non-running condition, so I don't really know whether it was perfect. Maybe it was bad. Maybe it had never been aligned in so many, in so many years. But I'll be able to do that. Either way, it's not such a huge cost. It's just a matter of getting the time to do it. Okay. I think we are fine now, and we'll call it good. Look at that. That's a reflection of that. Very interesting. It's much clearer there too, isn't it? Nice. Okay.